It is just such an exciting, demanding, innovative, agile place. For me, there is only Coventry.
So what is your read of how the new Labour government look at our sector?
That's a juicy question. I mean, the honest answer is...
Oh. So welcome to the Beyond Borders show.
Thank you.
And this is something that we started off a couple of months back, and we said we really want to make sure people on the outside world understand what happens on the inside world, the world that you and I happen to be a part of.
Yeah.
And the first question will largely start on that stance, and it's slightly personal. Steph. You've spent a long amount of time at Coventry. You spent about 6 years, and then you went to the big bad world, and now you've got to come back to Coventry. Just from a professional landscape, how does the power dynamic shift? I'm sure there must be is it a switch on, switch off, like when you went out and then you came back in? What were you thinking? And how does that kind of really, what goes on in your head as a professional when things like these happen?
Oh, interesting. I mean, it's really interesting shifting from the supply side to the demand side and then back again. Because when I was on the inside at a university, I was like, oh, we need to, you see all the challenges with working with agencies. You really see the university perspective. And then when you're on the other side, it was quite funny because I was the one calling up the university saying, hey, where's my offer letter? I need the offer letter. So that was really a good experience, actually, professionally, and definitely has given me greater depth and understanding, I feel. I think it equips me better to understand the pressures on the other side. And then, of course, coming back into the university, I was thinking, oh, well, obviously, all we need to do is, it's very clear to me from being on the other side, these are the challenges. And then, of course, again, I was wrong and I was humbled because I came back and I thought, yeah, actually, I understand there are different pressures again. So I really recommend, I think it's something everybody in this sector should do, actually, because it's very easy. It's very easy to kind of get embedded in your own thinking and really not truly see it from the other side. So it's been a really positive experience for me. It's definitely enriched me, and I recommend it to everybody.
That's awesome. I think we should put this out as a recommendation on behalf of SIF to all the university leaders out there. But my second question kind of comes in from where you just ended. You've had an illustrious career right up till the point you rejoined Coventry. And so my question is, this could have been any university out there. You had the big word open. You have so many universities you could have essentially come back to and been in a senior illustrious role like this. What made Coventry special that you came back to it?
That is a very easy question for me to answer because for me there is only Coventry in terms of questioning which university I'd work to. It is just such an exciting, demanding, innovative, agile place. I mean, we do crazy things like launch a July intake in 2-3 months, which, to the private sector may not seem quite so incredible, but actually, as you will know from working with universities, very often the kind of slightly public sector style of the industry can challenge that agility and that innovation and the speed of adjustment. I think from my perspective, there was no choice. It was just Coventry. And at Coventry, we have a vice chancellor and CEO. We are an education group. We're not just a university. I always remember our vice chancellor years ago saying, I'm going to ask you this question, actually. Do you know why the September intake starts in September? Do you know why that is? Why isn't it
something to do with the seasons? I remember read about 1.5 decades back and was primarily a US thing to begin with.
I believe it's to do with the harvest. It's to do with the harvest and the fact that basically, you couldn't start an education year in the middle of a harvest when it was all hands on deck in the fields and everything. Yeah. So that's why.
Imagine that has continued.
Exactly. That's continued. And our vice chancellor challenged us with that thing. He said, why does it have to be September? So we were one of the first universities to start a May intake, for example. This year we've launched a July intake.
That's not easy.
It's not easy. No, I can absolutely tell you it's not easy. And, we don't get everything right all the time. Of course we don't. We're always learning and trying to improve. But, I like that challenge. I like the vision of Coventry that we have such breadth of provision. We're not just about having a September intake. We're not just about one style of delivery. We do apprenticeships. We're the biggest provider of online, of MOOCs, for example. 1 million online learners. Like we have huge volume, well over 20,000 students.
I heard that's a big focus area as well, the online learning piece, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Online learning, but also qualifications delivered outside the UK. So we launched branch campus in Morocco. We have one in China. We have one in Egypt. We've got more coming. Watch this space for an announcement soon. So,
I think I know about that, but okay.
Yeah. So there's always something exciting. I love the professional challenge. I love the vision. And I truly believe in, it sounds very cliched, but we are about creating better futures. And I truly believe in that. I think that Coventry really does transform people's lives. So yeah, I love it. It keeps me on my toes. I think once you've worked, in the private sector, there could be some challenges, going back into the university sector. So I love it.
Awesome. And that's very, everything you said is, we've known parts of it. It's very encouraging for somebody at Leverage, because it's been now 7.5 years and we still think of ourselves as a startup. I think we'll always be a startup. And a lot of this DNA at Coventry, even though it has existed for much longer, but your ability to keep challenging, hey, what intake should I open? Or the whole strategy around CUG or model learning, or now into transnational education, kind of setting up these campuses, etc., around the world as well. I think that's very startup-y, if I may say so. And I think that DNA is something that we really aspire to kind of always have in our company as well, for as long as we exist, hopefully many decades. And so yeah, kudos to all of your Coventry for that. I think that's very, very exciting. I'm going to change gears a little bit. Sure. I'm going to talk about something we very briefly spoke about at the reception you hosted last night, and thank you again for that. We have a new government now in the UK. And I personally follow everything very closely on my Instagram. And thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister putting out a lot of updates right now, and not just him, David Lammy and the entire cabinet per se. There's a great ringside view we have into how the government is thinking about different sectors. But at least from what I've seen, and I've seen enough of whatever the new government has set up till here, there's been not much said about higher education as a sector. So what is your read of how the new Labour government in power now in the seat will look at our sector?
Well, that is the $1 million question.
Yeah. Billions of dollars, in fact.
yeah, billions. Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting question. I mean, the honest answer is we don't absolutely know, because they haven't said a huge amount.
Yeah, you've been in the
so we know that.
You must have some read for say what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can. I think it would be a fair assumption to expect a positive change in tone, and I think we shouldn't underestimate the impact of tone and the way the government has approached talking about international students. Referring to them as migrants, etc., is not helpful. And I think it's no secret, particularly in South Asia, but across the globe, UK international student recruitment has taken a big hit. And a lot of that is about the way the government has been talking about international students and recognising the value, the multifaceted value that they bring to our society, to our education system, to our economy, everything. And I think it would be very reasonable to expect that the new government will bring a more positive and constructive tone to the whole dialogue, which is very, very, very much in the media and very top of the kind of pulse of discussion at the moment in the UK. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the impact of that, because I think that could be really quite powerful. Do I expect an immediate change in policy? No, I don't think I do particularly. That's my personal view. They haven't said anything. Obviously, we had some very scary moments earlier this year around the MAC review, etc., and what would happen as a result of that, largely resulting in a positive outcome, actually. So students, so I think I don't think we will see any immediate drastic policy changes. I think that there has been lots of lobbying happening with government, including, we've been involved as well in supporting those discussions. And I know that a pilot is being considered or has been discussed for postgraduate students, which would allow them to bring dependents, which is around having an escrow account where they deposit funds in. So that model is being considered. I know other models are being considered on a pilot scale to kind of test the water. once there was proof of concept that they may consider rolling that out. But I mean, those are only discussions that have happened. Nothing has been confirmed. I think the new government, which has a major majority, which hopefully will bring
it's always better.
Yeah, will bring some stability. They are going to take some time to embed in, and so yeah, I think we've got to watch this space. But certainly, I think the whole narrative around international students and the contribution they bring to the UK and to our bilateral relations, will be a real positive. But anything can happen in UK politics.
But Steph, I must say, I must compliment you. I think that's one of the finest answers on this topic. Because and it's great. I was just thinking this to myself as you were sharing what you did. I think we obsess too much with the details and with the objective concluding points. I think it really is about tonality. It really is about the narrative. I think just even if the policies don't change immediately in the next 6, 12, 18 months, but the tonality improves in terms of how they describe international students, in terms of how they talk about their relatives and their families. I think that in itself is just a massive change. And that will be read so nicely by all of us in the industry. And awesome. I learned something from this answer. So thank you. I think you put it out really well.
Thank you.
Really good. I'll again switch back to something personal. I'm going to keep it from moving. What do you think about, and this is about you, Steph, the person, what do you think about competition as a virtue? Like, what do you think about it?
Oh, great question. That's a juicy question.
And I have a follow-up to this. So,
I love competition. I am a competitive person. I thrive on it. I think competition is very healthy if it's managed in a constructive way and if that energy is channeled in the right direction. Competition can become destructive and actually lead to undermining the goals and the purpose of all parties involved. And I think it's fair to say that the industry, there's been a drastic change, hasn't there? Oh, sorry, you want to talk about me personally, so I'm veering off track.
I'm going to come to that.
But the industry has changed radically in the last few years. And competition is sharper than ever. By the way, competition is also really sharp on the UK student recruitment front in the and all that does actually is, it kind of creates more pressure on the international side as well. So there's a lot of kind of downward pressure on universities at the moment, especially financial pressure. So I think that the recruitment space, the elbows are sharper than ever. So it's an interesting time. It's a very interesting time to be in the sector. But yeah, I love competition. I think it fuels me. I enjoy it, and I enjoy the feeling in my stomach of, how's it going to go?
Awesome. Love that. I'm loving this interview. But I think you've kind of drawn the daggers already. My next follow-up to this was, these are like two sub-questions in a sense. One is, who would you want to compete with as Coventry? Or who do you think is competition? And B was, who do you think UK as a higher education ecosystem competes with? Which country's higher education ecosystem is something that UK higher education industry as a whole should be on the watch out for? So,
well, that's interesting. Okay, so I'll start with the second question. Typically you'd say the Anglophone study destinations, right?
Which one among those?
Sorry?
Which one among those?
Which ones among those? That's a good question. Well, I think the US is really interesting at the moment. Obviously, there's a big surge in India in particular of interest in the US.
Enrollment cliff happening and all of those interesting things.
I think also the US, Australia, had a big boom a few years ago. UK came after that. Canada came after that. And now is the US's moment, it feels. But I think that, many US institutions are still relatively new to working with agencies, relatively new to this whole well-established world. But they're adapting very, very fast. They've got a fantastic product offering. They've got, huge advantages. And it's obviously a highly attractive destination. Very good salaries, economies, large.
I've just introduced the first 3-year postgraduate, first 3-year undergraduate program as well already.
Yeah, exactly.
The first one has come out here.
Exactly. Salaries are very good, very attractive economic environment for many students. So I think, the UK's got some serious competition. And so yeah. But actually...
But just to double down on that, how do you, as an ecosystem, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like if UK loses that pole position once, is it going to be so easy to make a comeback against the US, which is a beast in itself?
No, I don't think it's easy.
Should you let your pole position go away?
No, we absolutely, look, but we need to earn the right. We need to be offering the most attractive, employment opportunities, study mobility opportunities, life in the UK, so we cannot rest on our laurels. We have to hustle and hustle hard to make sure that we retain that attractive position. In fact, we were having this very conversation at the event you were at last night with the British Council around what we can do to work together to make sure that we remain an incredibly attractive and competitive destination. But it's tough. The US is tough competition. And of course, obviously, Canada has had a big surge, but now they've changed their policy. So that has slightly changed their, the overall market for Canada. But of course, it remains highly attractive with very interesting post-study employment opportunities. So historically, I would say those are kind of the primary destinations. But I think we've got two other big serious competition that often actually I think gets overlooked by some universities. So I think Europe is very is very interesting at the moment, particularly countries like obviously Germany and the Netherlands for some time have been booming in terms of international student recruitment, but now other countries that haven't perhaps focused quite as much are really, really gaining market shares. So countries like France, and I think there's fantastic quality education across Europe, very often at a very affordable price point, and many of those countries are now really looking at kind of national level to open up to the global stage. I think that represents some serious competition for the UK as a whole. And then I think the other thing is increasingly, students, India, for example, is booming. I mean, it's a real hub of innovation, of opportunity. And so, I mean, in fact, just yesterday, I think even with you, we were talking about the fact that some students actually, especially, why do I want to study abroad? India's got so many opportunities, great employment opportunities, so we need to be really mindful of that. In China, China's really grown its capacity in terms of its own education system and offering fantastic alternatives to study abroad in China. So, the UK isn't necessarily, we've really got to continue to innovate and continue to be kind of, to try to be as world leading as possible in how we're educating, what opportunities we are creating, and doing things differently that really give graduates an edge, which is what we're trying to do at Coventry. But so I think it's a very, very juicy question, that one.
I'm surprised to see you at within half a decade at UK universities or in a home office role talking about how you can really push UK as a country in the higher education domain. But I think that was very lovely. You still have to answer my first question.
Yes, well done for pointing that out. Not letting me off scot-free. Who is our competition? So, I mean, that's really interesting.
You can't be diplomatic about it. You can't say Netflix competition is sleep. You have to name somebody.
I'm gonna give you two answers to that. I think what's really interesting is that the Russell Group have changed some of their behaviours now because of some of the pressures that we've talked about. So we are seeing a range of universities fishing in the pond that we're usually fishing in that historically would never have been there. And I'm talking about the globe. I'm not talking about India particularly. I'm talking about everything, including in the UK. So that's been a real noticeable change in the last kind of couple of years. And that causes some serious competition. So in terms of who I see as our competition, it's an interesting question. Universities who are agile, who move quickly, who have competitive offerings. I don't think it's all about price. I don't think it's all about commission. I understand those things are important.
I'll let you run with that answer. Okay, that's granted. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So I think there's not it depends what we're talking about. It's this institution because I think it's also, we've got to be careful at the moment as a sector with the heat of the competition because what we don't want is a race to the bottom. We are a global education group and we are building a sustainable business and a sustainable strategy and a sustainable institution for our future students, right? And so if you think about competition, you think it's purely on numbers, it's purely on price, it's purely on how aggressive your scholarship scheme is. And I think that's a very short-sighted strategy. So I think it's got to be about, the quality of your offer. It's got to be about, places that are happening and get stuff done. What's their international strategy? So I think, there's very interesting institutions in the UK across the TNE space, student mobility. There's some really great stuff happening. Same in the student recruitment space. So that's not the answer you wanted. I know you want me to name someone, but
so just a quick follow up on that. Do you think universities are also forced to, in some sense, reinvent, and there will be more universities who need to act and behave like Coventry in the future, given students are also much more agile? For example, before this year, and we've been doing this for much lesser than you, our existence is all of 7.5 years. But we now have students coming in, dialing us in and asking, hey, what is Germany's employment rate for fresh graduates? What is UK's? What is North UK's? What is West UK's? What is for the specific set of universities? So I think students have also become much more, I won't say aware, they've just become much more granular. Yeah. And while that is great, that could also be sometimes frightening for people on the other side. So how do universities think about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't speak for all universities, but I think it's great. I mean, we need to be challenged. We are ultimately, we're all here for the students.
Beautiful.
So I welcome those questions, and we need to do the best job we can to answer them. So I think it's fantastic. And I think you're absolutely right. A classic sales approach, many students are kind of a bit allergic to now. They don't respond to that. They don't want that. We need to be sophisticated. We need to really understand them and understand, their situation, what they're looking for, how we might be able to help them, right? I think the days of rocking up at a fair and saying, hey, here's our brochure, oh, you want to do business, here you go. Those days are over now. We all need to up our game and be more sophisticated. And, we're still on that journey. We're trying our best. I think, do all universities need to be like Coventry? Well, I don't necessarily think we're the best at everything. So there's stuff that we can learn from others as well. We can't, we're a significant recruiter, particularly globally, but particularly in South Asia. Do I think that the competition, isn't watching us and isn't looking at what we're doing and trying to emulate or trying to do better than us, or actually being one step ahead of us in many different respects or multiple steps? Yeah, I absolutely know that. So yeah, we're on our toes.
Should we expect? And we did briefly discuss last night about how you guys are ahead in terms of doing a lot of curriculum redesigning and introducing. We talked about gaming in design, for example. But should we expect a lot of business/data programs at Coventry, actually encouraging a lot more employers to come in and invest in the programs? And we've seen bits and pieces of that in the US over the last few years. Yeah. Should we see more employment focused curriculum, which is integrated within your teaching years as well?
No, absolutely. That's absolutely what we are about. We are about, making sure that we're producing well-grounded, we're facilitating opportunities for well-rounded graduates with courses that are co-designed with employers wherever we can. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about the fact that we've launched a hub in India, in Delhi, actually, just opposite the British Council building. And our managing director, Leela, yesterday was talking about the fact that a key part of her role and her vision for the hub is to really focus on building relationships with employers here in India for Indian students, and making sure that those opportunities are really visible to applicants.
We'd love to help on that.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yes, please. We'll bite your hand off to do that. So absolutely.
Oh, lovely. Just dive into the next one. And this kind of comes in from another thing you said a few minutes back. When you look at Coventry strategy, and of course, I also hear from you in very subtle ways that you also want to diversify because you're a global institution. And I know, of course, we know about what happened in China, we know about what happened in India. But when you think about the next new growth frontiers for Coventry as this global institution, what countries, what regions come to your mind?
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. You're asking for all our secrets now.
It is helpful for us. So about 20% of our business right now comes in from Nigeria, Nepal, Vietnam, Dubai, and we're launching Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as well. So
okay, nice.
I'll maybe take away something useful for the team from this.
Interesting. Yeah, sure. So that's a really good question. We have lost some market share in China. We are going to get that market share back. So that's really, really key for us. I think that we are not punching at our weight in Central Asia, and in Europe more broadly.
Wow.
So that's going to be an area of focus for us.
Wow. Okay. You've actually mentioned regions I wouldn't have thought of.
Well, I think the thing is we've been in this game for quite a long time.
Yes.
So Africa will always be hugely important to us for a number of reasons, but particularly around student recruitment. I'm sure you know that the Nigerian market is suffering at the moment. We're
Naira and everything.
Yeah. We're weathering the storm better than average.
Yes.
But there's still some real challenge. So we want to really diversify in Africa as well as make sure that we continue to grow in our key markets like Nigeria and Ghana. And I think part of that is around working with a range of different organizations actually in those markets. So I would say that. What else would I say? I think there's a real opportunity. I was talking to your colleague earlier around EU onshore students. So these are students who are eligible for home fees in the UK.
I was actually going to talk about that because I immediately got curious when you said Europe because don't you think there's a Brexit hangover, and specifically given the fee structures change and...
Oh, don't I know it?
Yes,
I mean, we've suffered hugely. Yeah, we were a huge. I think we were the second largest recruiter of European undergraduate students in the UK at one point.
Wow.
So that has impacted us really significantly, like it has many institutions. There were some great reports released last year. One of them was by UUKI around that impact on the market. So yeah, I mean, it's been, of course, absolutely, and the issue largely is around access to student loans. It's not around price point, it's around access to student loans. Once the access to student loans is gone. So I was very interested in the work that you're doing at Leverage around the student loan space and the high proportion of your students that take loans. So I still feel that there's some sort of opportunity in there. The other big challenge in Europe is you can go to a top world QS ranked university for €2,000 a year. And in some cases you can be paid a subsidy to help with your living costs, right? That's a competitive offer.
It very much is, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a real opportunity there. Central Asia is very interesting. The market size is not as big, but there's some really strong growth in some markets actually. So I think that's really that's key. Where else? I'll be honest, we haven't done a huge amount of work in the Americas and Latin America. I think there's some real challenges for UK institutions in working in that particular space. So it does require a very nuanced go-to-market plan and strategy. But
give me a little bit of Brazil and I'll share those maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Some intel. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely on my horizon, on my mind, those particular markets. And I think, we want to be everywhere. So we've got to grow our share everywhere.
I have a very mini Europe follow-up question. Europe to UK pre-Brexit was a certain set of European countries, mostly West Europe,
yes.
I reckon. Do you see that dynamic changing? Do you see like Nordic region coming into play, or do you see like a bit of, given everything else that is happening in the macro world, a lot of East Europe coming into play when you think about the UK sector bringing in students?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So at Coventry, our recruitment was vast majority from Europe. From Eastern Europe, so from Romania, Poland, Bulgaria, Lithuania.
Oh, that is interesting.
Now, if you look at the sector data, the biggest markets from the EU are France, Spain,
all of West Europe,
Italy. Yeah. So it's all Western Europe. And actually, if you look at the proportion of which institutions those students are going to, there's a high proportion of top-ranked Russell Group, etc. So the whole profile of where students are coming from in terms of the source countries and which institutions they're going to has shifted quite a lot.
And when you think about Russell Group swimming in the same pond sometimes, I think that's very true I think that's more true for Central Asia than any other market in some sense. Or the larger Middle East market, I would say, you get closer to that because they're really obsessed about rankings and did you make it to this ranking or that ranking and do I get a sponsorship in some form or the other? Do you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some countries are extremely ranking sensitive, as you know. So yeah, it's an absolute determining factor in many countries. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, one last question for you, and again, this is a bit of personal, professional both, but what's your favorite hangout spot at the Coventry campus?
Oh, I can answer that really easily.
And we're going to blast shots of this to all the thousands of students who are going to go to Coventry this year.
Okay, top tip, you heard it here first, right? So when you come to Coventry, you know where to go. Yeah. We have this beautiful new building called the Delia Derbyshire Building, which is right in the heart of the city, £60 million, really cool design. It's full of it's where we have a lot of our creative spaces, virtual studios, things like that. So it's really, really cool. And very often you'll come in and there's a fashion exhibition or there's like a sound demonstration or installation taking place. The best coffee in Coventry is in the middle of that building. It's a coffee shop called Forest. Anybody who comes to Coventry will know that that's the place. It's really nice little. We've started introducing little independent coffee shops to our campuses. Lots of universities have like Starbucks and Costa and places like that. So this is a little independent place. And it's fantastic, and it is the hangout in Coventry. So I would say, yeah, it's got to be there.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So, on that note, I think the follow-up to something like this should happen at that same coffee place.
Yes, please.
And again, thank you so much for making the time to do this for us.
Thank you.
We'll possibly now take you over to the TGIS place and have you rock our team.
Looking forward
thanks
to
again,
it.
guys. Yeah, cheers.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was awesome.